So in this environment today, what are you learning between brands that you're able to kind of share across all the brands and lift them up together? Are there any commonalities right now that are maybe newer to this environment we're in?
That's a great question. I think that the areas where I'd say we gain the most benefit, I think the advantage we get is kind of the speed, the feedback loop. Because we get to see things from multiple different places, I think that actually helps us. But what are we very, very knowledgeable about based on where we sit? So, it's interesting. People have been talking about the death of email forever, but email is an incredibly important channel still for commerce and for content, right? A newsletter with high open rates and high engagement is really, really valuable. Understanding those best practices so that you can provide a great experience across your portfolio of businesses matters an awful lot. SEO still matters an awful lot. Experimentation within new channels matters, right? And so across businesses, if you have good, smart people, every business is going to move at a bit of a different pace in terms of their experimentation or their execution in various distribution channels. The beauty is if someone is having early success on Instagram, they can share that internally very quickly. And so the best practice sharing in a world that's changing really quickly can become good, solid competitive advantage. Also, the benchmarking that comes from that. Okay, this team is excellent at commerce SEO. Well, that means we should be excellent across the organization as quickly as we can. We should have really good closing speed at replicating areas of excellence inside the company.
How do you make sure that the brands don't all start doing exactly the same thing? Like, how do you keep them experimenting in what they're best at? And then maybe saying, this is our new benchmark and this is what everyone should be doing without all of a sudden looking and being like, oh, all my brands now are doing exactly the same thing and there is no experimentation.
I think if you're hiring capable people who want to function with a high degree of autonomy, I think the problem kind of solves itself because they would like their day-to-day of independence and executing their business. And we certainly encourage that. Really strong leaders also want to learn and steal from their colleagues kind of in the most positive of ways and say, hey, if it's working great for you, I want to find out about that. So then the question is, what type of lightweight framework that you can set up that isn't some sort of forced synergy, but creates a natural exchange of information rather than relying on, well, gosh, I hope everybody takes the initiative to find out what their colleague in a sister business is working on that could be helpful to them. And, we do that internally through regular product meetings. We, on a pretty regular basis, will get people together for probably half a day. We look at it really through the lens of the customer experience. What are we building by way of product and service, and how is it working? And that could be anything from a social media integration to, a new approach to SEO, to podcast marketing, and what it's actually done to engagement on platform. And so when you're focusing on the things that matter most to the business operators, where they're having real success or real challenge, it creates that coming together for best practice sharing that works pretty well for us. And then over time, people start to develop real relationships with one another. And what you hope is the meeting itself, which again it's probably every other month and it's half a day, is really the catalyst for ongoing interactions about, hey, what's working really well for you now? Or I've got this really sticky problem around conversion. What have you guys tried that works, or what are you hearing out there?
So I want to hear your thoughts on the future right now. Like, where do you think things are headed? Or do you have any contrarian opinions that others disagree with you on, or maybe your team members don't even agree with you on? Like, where do you think this ship is headed?
Yeah, well, this is an interesting time to ask that question, right? Because we have had this incredible bull market run that's lasted basically, slightly more than a decade. And so the big question is, are we headed into a recession? What's the likelihood of that? How deep is it
I
going to
think we're in
be?
it technically, right?
And yeah, I think we are. And people can argue around the edges of the definition, but there's also a lot of conflicting things out there, right? Which is, I think it's still a substantially, broadly speaking, competitive job market. People still have an awful lot of money saved. Inflation is real and can take you backwards very, very quickly. How much of this is transitory as a consequence of hot money and the supply chain? Will this be a long hangover? People can have their theories, but I don't think people really know. The shock of the pandemic and every meaning of the word shock, is very, very real. And the recovery is going to take time. And I think it's going to be very, very unpredictable. That said, the world is awash in capital. I think there's extraordinary innovation that is going to continue to come. Like technology doesn't stop moving merely because we go into a recession. And innovation, in many ways, in recessionary environments are when some of the best companies are created. I think the world, in some cases, slows down. The allocation of capital gets more disciplined, and there's less frivolous stuff going on. And so I think we will kind of soldier through the next couple of years. My own personal view is, yeah, it's probably more likely than not that we're in a mild recession over the course of the next 12 to 18 months. And businesses that have been heavily capitalized and consuming a lot of capital are not going to be able to do that on our sector the way that they were. But the opportunities, again, for innovation, new company formation, building new businesses that materially make people's lives better, like that hasn't changed one bit, right? What ends up happening is the foundation that we build upon keeps getting stronger and more robust, and great entrepreneurs come along and they take advantage of things that didn't exist even a few years earlier. So that cycle will continue. The other thing that will tend to happen is kind of the best companies will be able to make huge inroads in terms of competitive advantage because they will be able to consolidate more of the talent that's out there. The talent can get really diffuse in these really, really hot markets where there's tons of new opportunity on every corner and can make real progress.
Hey, thanks for watching. This segment was made possible by our friends at Salesforce Commerce Cloud. If you're looking for the #1 platform for all your commerce needs, go check out salesforce.com/commerce. And don't forget to subscribe below and tap that little bell icon so you can stay on top of all the amazing new segments and full episodes that we'll be putting out over the coming year with some of the best and most influential commerce leaders out there.